Right, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again today. And it's amazing to see so many people here with us again today for our second event. So to just briefly recap the launch event, which was all the way back at the beginning of October, which just feels like so long ago now. So we introduced everyone to us as a group run by PA employers for PA employers. And we want to give this platform to share experiences, offer peer support, and overall unite our voices to influence policy in this area. So our members, yourselves, are PA employers, including those who run budgets for other people, and no matter which funding situation they come from. And other organisations are very welcome to attend these events, but hopefully with an open mind to understand the experiences that many of us face every day. So one of the things we did in our launch meeting is we asked for feedback on what you would all like us to focus on, and we will be using those answers to shape our events going forward, starting with this one. So we are really thrilled today to be joined by the Campaign for Real Care, who will be talking about independent living, the rights you have around this, and their brilliant assessment toolkit. After a little break, we will then have a panel discussion with some of our committee members who all have a budget themselves or run one for someone else, and they're going to talk about their own experiences around direct payment support. This was something that came up a lot in the feedback, whether directly or indirectly, as many of the issues that we face as employers could really be lessened with having really good support. And we know that there are some fantastic support providers out there, but the provision is really patchy across each of the countries. And so not everyone has the same access to the support that they need. We're also joined by Barbara Carr today from paplace.org, which is launching this week, and she's going to tell us all about what they offer. And I also want to give an update on what we, ILG Community, have been doing since the launch meeting. So we have been attending a lot of meetings, a lot. And sometimes this isn't the work that gets shouted about, but it is so important. And some of the larger meetings we attend now previously didn't have any representatives there for just PA employers. So it's such a massive step forward. And in the last couple of months, we've met with various organisations, including Social Work Scotland. We've also regularly attended meetings with TLAP. We are a member of the Workforce Advisory Group, which is run by the Department of Health and Social Care. So they are the government wing that writes so many of the policies that impact us as PA employers. And as part of this, they've invited us to hold some training for them next month with their employees to discuss direct payments, what it's like to be a PA employer, and that's a really great opportunity. We have also had some great discussions with Skills for Care, and they hope to join us at a meeting at some point this year to talk about their work. We've attended the National Direct Payment Forum to talk about charging policies, and also hosted a meeting with various organisations in the hope of being able to provide some letters for members to send to their funding bodies to ask for a financial reassessment in the current climate. We are also looking at expanding our committee and particularly to have more representation from CHC or health budget users. So I'm really, really excited about this group and all of our aims for the future. And I really hope you will get something out of today. So just so you know, if you missed the last meeting, it is now available on the website. And for all of you coming in now that have missed what I've said, that will also, the whole meeting will again be on our website. So you can rewatch and check anything that you've missed or remind you of what was said. So I would now really happy to introduce you to Colin Slasberg, Don O'Neill and Charlie Thompson from the Campaign for Real Care, and I will pass across to them.
Hi, my name's Colin Slasberg. I'll just quickly introduce us. I'm a social care professional. And I've been working for a long time, both in the system and outside of the system, to try and understand what it is that's wrong with social care and what needs to be put right. It might appear obvious, but it's actually quite a complex subject. If I could introduce Charlie and Don. Charlie's going to speak first and talk about our toolkit, and then Don, and then I will talk about a charter that we'd like to introduce to you. So Charlie.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you so much to the Independent Living Group for having us today. It's a real pleasure. I do get a bit nervous talking, so bear with me. I've written things down. So yeah, we're basically a campaigning group. The work really started from a campaigning group that I'm involved in where I live in Barnet, called the Barnet Forum for Independent Living. And we are a group of residents who are affected by social care. From my personal perspective, I have long-term health conditions myself. My sister is autistic and learning disabled and has been in supported living for all of her adult life. So yeah, our family has always been directly impacted by social care. So the work that we were undertaking in Barnet happened as the result of some budget cuts that happened in Barnet to the learning disability budget, and a group of local residents who hold the local councils to account thought this was not right. There was no legitimate reason given for these cuts, and so began this investigation that we undertook into why these budgets cuts were happening. And that's when we were introduced to Colin, who's done extensive work on the Care Act and really has a very good understanding of the legislation, and was able to work with us to really kind of get to the bottom of what was going on. So to cut it short, because I could talk about this a lot, we uncovered some very uncomfortable truths that were happening in Barnet, and we now know that are happening on a national scale, whereby the process of the assessment that individuals have from the council is undertaken not according to the Care Act as it should be. So essentially the law is being breached, and so we have put together a dossier which was published yesterday of evidence talking about exactly what's been going on in Barnet, and it's a very interesting, if not disturbing, read if you're interested in reading. But I think that the overwhelming feeling we had was that there are thousands of people directly affected by this, and that their assessments are not being undertaken as they should be according to the law, that eligibility, which is what councils are actually assessing for rather than the full scope of need of the individual, essentially they are using eligibility to allow them to stay within budget, and sometimes it enables them to cut budgets. So I'm wondering if somebody could share somebody's asking in the chat where to find the document. We will share the link to the website if possible. That would be great. Yeah, thanks so much. Thank you. Yeah, so as well as this kind of overarching campaign around which Colin will talk more about, and Don will expand upon what I'm talking about, there is this immediate need of how are we going to help people who are currently having inappropriate care, not enough care, support, not the things that they actually need. So we have created what we call the Real Care Toolkit, and my particular area of expertise is in design and I have experience in building websites. So I have been building the website and the toolkit online. We've worked very closely together to create the toolkit, and we hope that it can be helpful. But essentially, it will guide anybody who has to have an assessment or review through the process, but in a very different way to the way that they will probably have experienced via their counsel. So it won't be asking you at the very end of your assessment what you might want or what you might fancy. It is rooted in how you view your own needs. And that is what the Care Act specifies. The Care Act essentially should, if followed correctly, enable full independent living according to the UN. So yeah, I think that's probably as much as I need to say, but the toolkit we have found has proven useful for people. I'm using it at the moment with my dad, who's just had to take up social care services, and it's been very, very useful to really be able to say to the social worker that we know what our rights are, and to hold the council to account on that. And I will also be working with my sister's support workers to, when her next review happens, using the toolkit. So yeah, I think that's probably as much as I need to say. But yeah, any questions after this, please do ask.
Thanks,
Don.
Charlie. Yeah, so just building on what Charlie said, essentially, that what we'd like to do is see social care to be on the same basis as NHS, so that there's no charging and all your needs are catered for. I just want to illustrate those points. And as a user of social care, and as many other users of social care, we know it doesn't work well for many people. Under the current system, the way people are assessed, it helps people to exist rather than live. For many people, the ability to go out there and get a job, form relationships and have relationships, and to do leisure activities and more, just isn't there, because for many people, the care package doesn't really allow that. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine where I live, her care package is based around her only being at home. Someone comes in the morning to get her out of bed, give her breakfast, and then back in the afternoon, sandwich for lunch, help her to the toilet. Later on, another toilet break. Then in the evening, someone comes in for about half an hour to microwave a meal for her. And while she's eating it, they stand over her and tell her to eat quickly because they've got to put her to bed in that same half an hour. And she just stays at home all the time. Her care package is so bad that she doesn't have enough support to go out and get a haircut or even to do her own shopping. She relies on her neighbour to do her shopping for her because she can't go out and do that on her own because the care package is just not enough. So she, I believe, just tends to exist rather than live. She can't go out and see her family because there's not enough care support there. And when I asked her why she doesn't try to get more care, she's too scared to get more care. And also she's worried that if she tries to ask for more care, the carer she has would leave and she has no idea how to find a new carer. And this is the kind of information that the social worker should be telling her, how to find a new carer. So we believe that to help people to live rather than exist, social care should be modelled on the NHS at its best. And before I explain why, just look at the reverse. Imagine if the NHS was modelled on social care. Imagine being in an accident and seeing a doctor with a broken leg, broken arm, broken finger. And the doctor saying, well, we'll fix the leg and the arm, but the finger, we'll leave that broken, just take some painkillers. It'd be outrageous if your health needs were not catered for in the way that social care needs are not catered for. Outrageous. But that's how it works in social care. You've got a social care user who needs washing, dressing, and meals prepared. and help to go shopping and visit family, often they only cater for washing, dressing and meals prepared, because that's what's critical or substantial. The rest of it is just ignored. And that's not okay, really. And just as it's not okay on the NHS to not have all your needs catered for, it shouldn't be okay in terms of social care to not have all your needs catered for. We need the social care modelled on the NHS so all people's needs are catered for. And when you go to see your social worker, there's no question of saying, well, we'll do this, but not that. There's no question of how much will it cost. And there's no question if you go without. You know, we need to help people to lead meaningful lives and to take part in their communities as fully as they want to. We need social care to be the same as the NHS, free at the point of use. I'm going to hand over now to Colin, who will talk more on this issue.
Right, thanks, Dom. So the question is this: why don't social workers who carry out assessments already work in the way Don says they should? After all, their training and values say they should, and their employers even say they should. If you look at policy documents, they are awash with rhetoric about social workers being person-centred, outcome-focused, strengths-based, etc., etc. Now, the problem is what those employers say they want their social workers to do is not what they actually require them to do. And to understand that, you need to understand how the eligibility system works. Now, officially, the policy is this: 1, government sets national criteria. 2, councils are then required to set their budgets to meet all needs that come within those criteria in their locality. All needs deemed eligible must be met as a matter of law. Now, the criteria are always pretty fair and indeed generous, so much so that councils' power to meet needs over and above the eligibility criteria is never used. There simply isn't a need to do so. But there's only one problem with this: it is completely undeliverable. Even if councils knew how much it would cost to meet all needs within the criteria, which they don't, they simply don't have the power to set whatever budget they choose. And everybody knows that's the case. But this leaves councils with a dilemma. They can only spend within whatever budget they happen to end up with, but they have, by law, to meet every need they deem eligible, whatever the cost. Now, how do they square this circle? There can only be one solution. Each council and each budget holder within each council decides what is eligible, and they do so at a level that ensures spend comes within budget. This is all carried out behind closed doors. And by using the language of the national eligibility criteria to describe their decisions, the appearance is given of following them, but it's entirely false and misleading. But for national and local government, it works. Spending is always to budget, and what's more, there is never any unmet need that politicians have to worry about. For political leaders, it's a win-win. And it is this that shapes social workers' practice, not the rhetoric, but the hard reality of money. And the consequences are devastating. Support can be way too little and/or completely wrong. There is no comeback. As far as the council is concerned, it's a case of job done. All needs have been met. Now, some people have what it takes not to be browbeaten in this way, and possibly many of yourselves. They can turn the tables and browbeat their council into accepting their view of their needs. But the vast majority, too wearied by life, too cowed by the power of the council, and too dependent on the goodwill of the council, simply cannot resist. And the system depends upon the majority being made up of people such as this. And the system, crucially, because it defines need by the available resource, can never know the real cost of enabling all to have the life right for them. social care remains perpetually trapped as an underfunded, undervalued Cinderella service. And this is the context of why we are campaigning for a charter for a rights-based national service. And at this point, hopefully, David will put it up on the screen. But the idea is very, very simple. This is, by the way, England. We're aware of the fact that there are people around the UK in your group. The charter that we've prepared is an England version, but the concepts are adaptable to any of the nations in the UK. And if there's anybody in Scotland, Wales, or Northern Ireland that would want to work with me to adapt it for your nation, I'll be very happy to do so. The writing's a bit small, but I'll go through it. There are five points to it. The first simply sets out what the national government has said itself and what its vision is for social care. And in England, the nation's vision is that all people in need of care and support should experience the best level of well-being possible for them. And well-being is defined by the 9 areas set out in the Care Act. And they set out the factors that make life the best it can be. And most people agree with that. The 9 areas include dignity, they include emotional well-being, they include having control over your life and over your services and your contribution to society. The 9 areas are comprehensive. And then secondly, through partnership with each individual in need of care and support and their informal carers, local authorities will identify all their needs according to the Act's 9 areas of well-being, crucially, without regard to the availability of resources. And as Don said, just as when you see a doctor, we normally expect the doctor to identify what we need in the context of the best of their medical knowledge. So should social workers identify social care needs with the individuals concerned. At that point, local authorities will be honest and transparent with each individual about which of their needs they have the resources to meet and which they do not. Now, that will require the legal power to meet need to be brought into play, and the legal duty become a minimum guarantee, as it was always intended to be, not the total package. 4, local authorities will then collate all the information about the needs that cannot be met, so they and central government know the resources required for all to have their best level of well-being. So the unmet need will be able to have the same function as waiting times in the NHS. And then 5thly, that information will be used to inform local planning so that local services achieve the greatest impact for the greatest number of people within the existing resource. And secondly, crucially, that information determines central government grants and local budgets in full knowledge of the gap between needs and funding, with a commitment to close it as fast as finances permit. Now, delivery of these 5 points in this charter will also ensure that England delivers on the UK government's commitment to independent living as defined by the UN. Now, 2 concepts are important here to refer to. To the United Nations, independent living is a principle, a universal principle, that people must be able to make the same life choices as others. These choices can be minor ones, such as what to eat and when to eat, or major ones like what contribution you make to society. Now, we know that being an employer of PAs, as you are, is the highest and most successful form of independent living, but the UN principle must apply to all people in need of care and support. And the second point about the United Nations is the concept in the United Nations of the progressive realization of resources. The UN does not expect member states to provide all the resources for all to experience independent living as a legal right. Utopian as that would be, the United Nations is not unrealistic, but what it does say is that every member state should commit themselves politically to progressively and demonstrably realise those resources. So identifying the scale of unmet need is the first prerequisite to do so. And lastly, the Charter would replicate for social care the founding principle of the NHS in the way Don had described, which is that need must come before resource. And under those circumstances, also replicating what happens in the NHS, professionals must be responsible for the identification of need and politicians responsible for funding those needs. So you have the separation of professional and political responsibilities on exactly the same terms as the NHS. And just to conclude, we will be asking your steering group if you would be willing to support our charter. We're at the early stages, we're at the beginning stages of our campaign, and we hope that you will support it. We think it will be in your interests, and we look forward to more work together. Jade, I think that's our presentation.
Oh, thank you so much. Are you okay to take questions?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so if anyone would like to ask a question, if you could either raise your hand and wave, and I'll try my best to see you. I need to try and figure this out, or write in the chat. So is anyone? Can anyone see anyone asking? It's a bit hard to see when there's so many.
I'm keeping my eye on it, Jade, as well. Just to say from me, thanks, Colin, and thanks, Charlie and Don. Really great to have you here with us today. There is somebody with a hand up. Sebastian Bianco.
Hi. I really enjoyed your presentation. I just wanted to know, given the several policies that exist that correlate with the Care Act, and this world we live in, that's all about health and safety and risk assessments, how quality of life correlates with all that. Because even if you have the budget, if you're relying on a lot of equipment that can't be taken outside the home, and public places don't have things like hoists and things like that, whether there is a way of sort of encouraging manual handling, albeit done safely, to be engaged in once again, because we can do all we can to encourage places to adopt such things as changing spaces and places, but that's not going to change mainstream provision.
Yeah, I can answer that if you want to, Colin. Yeah, I mean, I use PAs and I do manual handling. And as far as I'm aware, you know, if you employ someone directly with PAs, you're allowed to do that kind of thing in your home. You know, it's more with agencies don't really like it. But if you use self-employed carers or employ directly, because things in your home at that level, I mean, you are allowed to take risks in your life.
Yeah, I'm finding that, and that's what I've done in the past. But what you find is, especially with the advent of COVID, obviously that other person has a say in the matter too. And unless you have two PAs at any one time, obviously they're not entirely comfortable to engage in manual handling, which is their prerogative. And like you said, it's difficult trying to advocate to social workers that if that's going to be the case, you do need two PAs. Because thinking back to when I was originally assessed, my resource allocation came out as me needing two PAs, and yet they'd only put enough money in for one. So I stupidly back then, rather than saying, well, put more money in for two, knowing that one person was comfortable enough to do what you just said back then, I said, well, so that you don't put them off, should they read the report, please remove the need for two PAs at the top of the assessment.
Yeah, I suppose overall, you kind of need more support with assessments. I mean, if you were assessors needing two PAs, then two PAs ought to be funded. I do find you hear a lot of anecdotal stories where people have an assessment and they agree to something, and it's only when they, I don't know, get home or they try it out in practice and they realise it's not enough. But trying to get it changed to increase it is often very hard after that initial assessment. I don't know, Jade, do you want to take more questions? We've got a question.
We've got a couple of questions in the chat. So if we just go to that and then we'll just take the last two, if we could keep it short as possible. So the first question was, how much have councils supported your toolkit and endorsed its practice?
Colin, do you want to? You're muted, Colin.
You're mute.
Colin, you're muted.
None yet. I'm not sure we'll be looking to councils to endorse it, but what we will be looking to increasingly is for social workers to endorse it. We've had some good discussions with some social workers in Barnet. They need a bit of time to get to grips with what this is saying, but we're working on the concept of the enlightened social worker who can find a way of reconciling working with individuals in the way that the Charter says with their responsibilities to their council. But that's work in progress, and we'll be putting on the website the outcome, and we'll notify you when that's done.
Can I just add to that? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, the Charter is very new still, and so it's only just been up there. But hopefully over time we will get councils to look at it. I think often at first sight it might need a bit explaining to some people, to local authorities, and that might be the process we use, whether we link up with local authorities and have a chat about the Charter and what it actually involves, and then they might be more engaged to actually adopt it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in terms of Barnet, we've had not such a positive experience with Barnet Council, and I think that the issue really is that what we're saying is challenging the status quo, and it's challenging the practice that's happened for a long time, and there are a lot of people who want to keep things as they are. So yeah, there is some resistance, but really the moral ground is with us. So we know that it's the right thing.
Okay, we've just got a couple more minutes. So in the chat we've got from Jennifer, can this Charter include personal health budgets?
I don't see why not. The principles are exactly the same, and it's a good question. It's something that we need to think about.
Well, personal health budgets are from the NHS, so they are normally free at the point of use, aren't they? So you don't normally get charged for those or have to pay, contribute towards them. I don't think.
May I just interject a moment? Yeah. Hello, it's Barbara here. Health and social is supposed to be integrating now, so I think this is a fantastic time that you guys are doing this. And I also agree, my daughter's on a health budget. If there's integration, because there's a lot of differences between the two and not always good. Thank you.
Okay, Jennifer, was your question the same as the one in the chat? Are you able to just keep it brief as possible? If not, I know, Robert, you've got your hand up too. Just I saw Jennifer.
The dog was barking. My question was the same, but we've moved after 17 years of a social care budget to health. It's taken 5.5 years, but we're still fighting with them. She hasn't got her budget yet. it's a nightmare. They don't seem to understand at all.
And it's sad, very sad.
Very sad.
Thank you. And then we'll just finish with Robert Punton, please.
Hello, yes, just very quickly. I'm a direct payment recipient, but I also run a peer support network here in Birmingham called Better Lives Alliance. We work very closely with Birmingham City Council, so I'd be very much interested in getting your contact details and see how we can work together to increase your charter and also improve the lives of people who receive direct payment and personal health budgets. So I just wanted to say that.
We'd be delighted to be in contact.
Thank you so much.
I'll put my email in the chat and then you can pick it up from there.
Brilliant. Thanks, Robin.
Thank you. Sorry. Oh, thank you so much to the three of you. That was absolutely fantastic. And just to say, we absolutely support your charter. We are happy to endorse it, whatever you want us to do. We very much support all the work that you're doing. And we're so grateful to have you here today. And that was really, really interesting. So thank you.
And thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Bye then.
Bye-bye. So as we said before, for anyone who can't see that, the charter is on our website, and we've also linked to their website in a few places, and someone will put a link to the website with the toolkit on in the chat. But do have a look at both, but particularly the toolkit. It is really helpful piece of work and will really make a difference. To particularly in finding the right wording and things when you're trying to challenge something. So yeah, have a look. So we're going to have our panel discussion in a minute, but I just want to say thank you again so much to Colin, Charlie and Don. And you might have seen in the chat that Charlie has offered to put on a separate discussion about the toolkit, which I think would be absolutely fantastic. So we will arrange that, and that would be great. So for anyone who'd like to attend that and find out more about the toolkit, that would be a brilliant chance. I meant to say earlier as well, we've got 2 other meetings like this in the year. So I thought I'd let you know the dates now, so you can all scribble them in your diaries or your phones or with it, whatever you do. So our next meeting is the 18th of May, and then the last one of the year will be the 19th of September. So hopefully that's enough notice to block those out, so that and it'll be the afternoon again around the same time. So yeah, thank you. So on to the panel discussion. David's just setting that up now. I'm really looking forward to this, and then so I will pass it on to him.
Here.
Yeah.
Yes, she is. Yeah, I couldn't see her. Let me just add her in. Brilliant. Hi, Rachel. I was having a minor panic there. I couldn't see her. I think it was me. Thanks, Jade. I'll unspotlight you, Jade. Give you a break. Thank you. Right. Yeah. Excellent. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming, and thanks, Jade, for organising and hosting this event and making it easy for the rest of us. I'm sure you'll all agree it's been a really interesting session, and I hope you'll all agree that, you know, watching the ILG community grow in whatever capacity you're involved or you've been involved with them is a real pleasure. I've been involved in direct payment support for a long time, and over 20 years really in total, work in various roles, and I think it's just so fantastic to see a group of PA employers coming together across the UK. It's just absolutely fantastic, and I'm really delighted to be kind of have a role within that group. So we're going to have a panel discussion today, and we're going to talk about direct payment support. What do we mean by support? Is it a postcode lottery? I'm not a massive fan of that phrase, but we all know exactly what we mean. You know, is there any consistency across the UK? Just before we get started on this session, I have to read out a bit of a disclaimer, just to say that the information and opinions provided by the panel and other members of the ILG Community Steering Group do not constitute any form of legal advice. The views expressed should not be relied on or treated as a substitute for specific advice relevant to particular circumstances, and are not intended to be relied upon by you in making or refraining from making any specific decisions. So I have to say that, I'm sure you appreciate why. But what we do want to do is have a good discussion, as I said, about what we mean by direct payment support. Lots of people have asked, you know, we listened this morning, in the early session about social care in general and assessments, eligibility. We're now moving the conversation on. We are specifically talking here about support once somebody has a direct payment and they choose to employ a personal assistant. So support around recruiting PAs, support around managing your employer obligations, managing a budget and managing your PA, support accessing payroll, maybe support to access insurance and legal advice. So we know that the term itself needs qualification defining, because if you say to one social worker team or somebody in one part of the country what direct payment support is, or one commissioner, they might think it's just payroll, it's just managed account. They might not actually consider the support you might need even to access those services. So we're keen to define that. We know that direct payments originally, as it was introduced, was kind of tethered to this idea of support. If you go way back to the Partner Health Guidance to direct payments in 2003, it talked about support coming from local disabled people's organisations. It was embedded in the actual guidance that was just a thing that should happen, that local authorities should, by default, partner with local centres for independent living to do that and to build trust between the community of people in receipt of direct payments with the funding body. Arguably, that's changed, and what I think this community is keen to do is understand why that's changed, what we can do about it, and whether we can help reset the agenda. We know that lots of support organisations are contracted to local authorities. Some are in-house. We know that there are examples of good in-house teams, good contracted teams. What is it that makes those teams effective? What kind of resources needed, and what kind of consistency should direct payment employers and employers of PAs, what can they expect and should they expect, and how can we kind of share our experiences as much as possible to try and establish what good looks like in that respect. So it is important, we have to remember to balance that with the need to address, to balance that with the need to manage public funds, I should say, with the need to support and enable independent living. So we're not, again, suggesting that having a conversation that's divorced from that reality. So I'm waffling on a wee bit, sorry. I'm very enthusiastic about this topic. So on the panel today, we've got some representatives from the ILG Steering Group Committee. I'm really pleased to introduce, we have Brett Bignall from Dowers Centre for Independent Living, and Brett has a long history in direct payment. I don't want to make you out like you've been around too long, Brett, but a few years experience working in England and now in Wales for a support organisation, and he'll be kind of speaking from the Welsh perspective, but I'm sure he'll be chipping in generally as well. From Scotland, we have Agnes Haddon. Hi, Agnes. And Agnes works for Take Control. It is East Dunbartonshire. Agnes, have I said that right?
I cover South Lanarkshire and North Lanarkshire, yeah.
Yep, sorry, so that's my mistake, sorry. And Rachel Knowles here from Lancashire. Hi, Rachel. And she's our English rep, and we have Susan Henschel from Northern Ireland. Hi, Susan. So we've got a few questions. We did ask for questions for the panel, and we did have some questions submitted. So I think we'll start there. But if you have questions or comments around direct payment support and you want to submit them, please do use the chat, and we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll put those questions to the group. So for those of you that submit questions, I'll start then by reading the first question. So question 1, the policy and guidelines on how the direct payments should be spent seem to be totally dependent on location, who the funder and case manager is. This should not be the case. Is there a government policy and guidelines available that we should all comply with, or should this be tailored and agreed according to care needs and employment requirement? Can the panel please advise? Brett, can I direct that question to you, please?
Yeah, you can.
Thank you.
I want to answer both from the English perspective and Welsh perspective. England and Wales have separate legislation around social care, but the principles are the same. And again, it goes back to what Colin was saying earlier. Basically, everybody has the right to an assessment, and eligibility criteria is set nationally, but it's then up to the local authorities as to how they interpret that within the bands. So it's really important that you do your research into what's eligible within the local authority. Don't rely on what your social worker tells you. The reality is a lot of local authorities will say, oh, we don't provide this, that, or the other, for example, cleaning or shopping or whatever. The legislation in both England and Wales allows for those things to happen. So if you have an unmet need, the local authority need to be aware within the principles of independent living that you need that need to be met by your PA. So not necessarily by you buying in services. There was a report on BBC News just this morning about how disabled people are being charged towards the cost of their care. And that's a issue that ILG have been campaigning on. It's a situation of doing your research, because every local authority will interpret that legislation and guidance in a different way. Just, you know, basically go on the internet, and I'm sure David can put some links into the chat as to those guidance and what have you. The other thing to bear in mind is when a decision goes to the Ombudsman, then those Ombudsman decisions in England are publicly available. And two of the issues that have been looked at are cleaning and shopping, but it's worth noting that in Wales, the rules are different around the Ombudsman's decisions. The Ombudsman's decisions are not published, but I happen to know that, again, those issues have been, decided upon by the Ombudsman, and they cannot refuse cleaning and shopping depending on your need. If you can demonstrate that that's your need as a disabled person requiring that support, then that's got to be allowed.
Great, thanks, Brett. Yeah, and we will endeavour to put some documents up, as Brett suggested there. Certainly in England, the Care Act Statutory Guidance, Chapter 12, is a good place to start in terms of what a local authority should be doing, is instructed to do around direct payments. Obviously in Wales, we have the Wellbeing Act, which is quite similar to the Care Act, and there'll be, we'll dig out the guidance there. Agnes, in Scotland, the SDS Act, is that right? There'll be, I assume there's similar direct payment guidance associated to the SDS Act?
Yeah, that's right, David. There is the Self-Directed Support Scotland Act, which came out in 2013, just before self-directed support became law. However, direct payments go way back longer than that. There has been statutory guidance issued, and there's also been updates to that statutory guidance during COVID as well.
Brilliant, thank you, Agnes. So we'll actually make a point of digging the correct legislation out, and we'll put those guidance. We'll include those on the event page after the meeting today. Susan, in Northern Ireland, I don't suppose, how do you feel in relation to Brett's answer around support, just briefly?
Yes, well, in Northern Ireland, we have the Direct Payments and Cares Act 2002, I think it is, but wellbeing is not part of it, which is, we're quite envious of your Care Act having wellbeing mentioned within your legislation. So I'm losing my train of thought here.
That's fine. No, that's fine.
Yes.
Thank you, Susan. So
okay.
you look on enviously to what's happening in the rest of the UK regards wellbeing and some of the legislation.
Yes. However, your charter, the new charter, which was just highlighted today, pretty much images the viewpoint of the Department of Health Northern Ireland policymakers' view, because we have just had a consultation on adult social care. which was that people should be enabled to live, primacy of home, people should be enabled to live in their own home if that's their choice, regardless of cost. So that is, but what happens with that is up in the air, of course. What happens with that consultation result? You know, we need a government, first of all, but anyway.
Thank you, Susan, thank you. Rachel, any more comments that you would like to make from an English perspective, or do you think it's covered it?
Yeah, I think from an English perspective, it's been covered, hasn't it?
Okay, brilliant, thank you. So next question that I've got in front of me, and I can see some coming in as well, and a hand up, so we are keeping an eye on that. The next question I've got coming in is somebody suggested they'd like to use an alternative bank to a prepaid account to receive their direct payment. It's for a PHB, but in their case, they're suggesting that the funders are forcing them to use the banking service, so a prepaid card. They're asking, should they have the choice of where the DP funds are paid? Does anyone use another bank account, a bank to the one they're using, which I won't mention, but it's one of the major prepaid card providers? And can the panel advise how to go about getting this changed? Rachel, could I ask you on that one? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. In regards to a personal health budget, within my area, which is Lancashire and South Cumbria ICB, you've got the 3 different options of how to receive the budget. One of those is a direct payment, and your choice is really important in that you can decide to have a designated bank account and provide auditing for the ICB, or you can nominate a third-party supported banking service or a managed account that would deal with the auditing on your behalf. Or again, you can use one of those prepaid card systems. I think with local authorities and individual ICBs, whichever prepaid card company they use, I think that's the one that they prefer, in that it makes their auditing easier, and auditing for people easier as well, because it means that they've got online access to the account and can see the transactions. But really it is all about that choice and control. And no, you shouldn't be obliged to use a particular method. You know, you should have that choice in using an account that you want to use.
Brilliant, thank you, Rachel. And just to add to that, there was quite a lot of work a few years ago, spearheaded, I think, by In Control and somebody called John Waters, who wrote a really interesting report around prepaid cards and their implementation and the impacts it would have on choice control, which we'll dig out, and we'll make that available for you all as well and put that on the event page. But I think it's fair to say the impacts of prepaid card, it was an interesting time for anyone who's around when they were kind of introduced, because as an option amongst many, they're useful, but I think that the difficulty was, I think they were very much kind of brought in wholesale, and in many areas people were kind of encouraged to not have a personal bank account or to move over to a prepaid card, or it's been advertised and suggested to people as a default option, which I think is some of the stuff that's covered in that report. So thank you for that question. Thank you, Rachel. Another question I've got here, I often get assigned inappropriate advisors / care assessors that do not understand how to support me with the management of direct payments and employing PAs. In other words, they do not have the skills to support with employment law, recruitment, wages, training, etc., health and safety issues. What advice can the panel give? Agnes, can I go to you on that? Is that okay?
Yeah, no problem. I'll do my best. There's an awful lot of people who don't understand direct payments, and even when you talk to, just general public, they don't know what it is, they don't understand what it's about, and yet it is the way that community care is delivered nowadays. We talk about self-directed support in Scotland, we talk about the 4 options, and that's what we talk about, choice and control. So what my best advice I could give you would be to link in with one of the Centres for Inclusive Living. Certainly that's where I started off. I had a direct payment way back 2003. I had a direct payment from my son, and I had no support. I didn't know where to start, I didn't know where to go. but I very quickly linked into one of the Centres for Inclusive Living, and they gave me the support with all the things that you're talking about, with payroll, with employing staff, with all the different things. So when I started, I had 8 hours a week and I knew nothing. I now have grown to having, my son is now in his own accommodation with 24/7 support. So I now manage a full direct payment, which is, it's a job in itself doing that. But as a job, I also help other people to manage their support. So I guess I've kind of came full circle to being the person who didn't know very much, to being the person who maybe tries to help other people as well.
Thanks, Agnes. So, and in Scotland, can I ask, because lots of people here might be interested, I mean, what do you feel there is consistency within Scotland, at least, around the amount of the kind of support for those things specifically that's available for the recruitment stuff, for the PA employment stuff?
I think there's still, you know, we talk about this postcode lottery. I think there's still a postcode lottery within Scotland, although what we do have, we have a lot of good national organisations, and one of them being Self-Directed Support Scotland. They have just recently produced a PA and a PA employer's handbook, which I can put the wee link on the chat as well to let people see that. And it is a very good resource. There's also the PA network in Scotland and Social Work Scotland. We've got Inclusion Scotland as well. There's a lot of good organisations round about self-directed support and helping people to manage their choices. It's very interesting earlier on about them. Somebody mentioned about this health and social care being integrated. In Scotland, there's 32 local authorities, and what we're talking about just now, and a lot of discussion round about, is the National Care Service, which is really quite interesting. But they're taught that is, you know, a human rights-based approach, and also, you know, having people with lived experience at the centre of that. So there's lots of developments and lots of good things happening. I don't know whether that is replicated in the other areas or not.
I think you're further ahead. Thank you, Agnes. That's really helpful. Susan, I'm just looking at you for a moment. Just again, as a comparator, listening to Agnes speak there, how are things in Northern Ireland with regards to that consistency then around support?
Well, I have to say, first of all, I'm fairly new to the independent living group, so I'm only an expert by my limited personal experience, but I look really at envy from what Agnes says about Scotland having a number of, and I would hope, independent organisations to support people with direct payments, be it from the initial setting up and throughout it, whereas I'm not aware of a range of support organisations to support us as direct payment employers that are completely independent of the funders or indeed the Department of Health. I'm not aware of any. We have the Centre for Independent Living who are funded by the Department of Health, but at present, as far as I'm aware, there are no local offices open. They closed during COVID and haven't reopened, and there's none actually in the area where I live at all. So I'm very envious of that. The other thing, which is, I just don't want to diverge on that, but what I have learned, and I hope this helps other people who probably are all aware, that your insurance company is key to any employer issues that you have, no matter how simple as regards they have their own free legal advice on any employer issues, no matter how small, before they become a major issue. And it is really important that we all know that they are at the end of the phone and will send written information to you confirming what advice they give. No question is too small. So that is something that I have only recently learned.
Thank you, Susan. That's really helpful. And I think that's a really good point to raise, that there are providers, insurance providers, who provide legal advice. There are good payroll companies who will give you lots of support advice. I've always felt, from certainly going way back to my time in direct payment support, that it's about kind of the awareness to access those organisations, but also about having support on the ground, because those organisations will do great things via the phone and email. But for me, it's about the best mix of support is knowing you've got access to that sort of advice. Absolutely, really important, because it safeguards you in the event of a employment situation escalating, but also having, you know, when things are tough, when you do need to recruit, when there is a really tricky issue, perhaps you're taking advice from your insurer, but you still need a little bit of support in the meeting, pulling that together. That for me is the bit that has so far been undefined, but actually brings everybody up to a level where they can really benefit from direct payments, because there are people who don't need as much support as others and will just run with it. And there are really good websites out there, like My Care Budget, for example, where there's fantastic resources that have been put together for employers, and that's absolutely fantastic. But there are still those people, even if you give them all the resources in the world, are going to need, I think, that extra support, particularly when setting up on direct payment. And I think a good support service, you know, can get a bit more equity and can get everybody up to the level where they can confidently kind of ride the highs and lows that inevitably come with employing PAs. Brett, can I ask just quickly what your views are in Wales regards same sort of question, really, and just if you could just give us a snapshot of things in that part of the world.
Yeah, certainly. Again, it does vary authority to authority. I'm unfortunate to work within the Centre for Independent Living, which in its embryonic form was originally called the Personal Assistance Agency, and I, along with 4 other users in Wales, set that organisation up, and then I disappeared off to East Sussex for 16 years. In my experience, having worked for a commercial support service and worked for a Centre for Independent Living, Centres for Independent Living are the best way of disabled people receiving support. Certainly within Dewis, we are able to support people across the country. It doesn't have to be just in Wales. If anybody's having a really bad experience where they live, then my details will be in the chat, and please contact us. But it does depend on the authorities that you're in. Often it's a situation where when support services have gone either in-house or to a commercial concern away from CILs, then people realise how good the CIL was, and then they kind of want to come back to us, and that is starting to happen again.
Brilliant, thank you, Brett. And finally, Rachel, I guess it wouldn't be right if we didn't have a word from England on the same thing. I know, for those that don't know, Rachel's worked as a direct payment advisor in some form or another, if you don't mind me saying, Rachel, you've got a few years experience there, haven't you, similar to the guys here. So yeah, what's your reflections on England and the same sort of question?
Well, within sort of Lancashire, where I've lived for most of my life, I went into direct payments in 2003 following my own sort of assessment process when there wasn't really a support organisation in place. And so from 2003, there's been different versions of a support service, starting back with their own organisation in Lancashire, followed by Lancashire Support Service, and then when Brett was talking about Centres for Independent Living, that's when Lancashire had its own Centre for Independent Living. And then it disbanded, and then it was, I worked for Your Life, Your Way. Different organisations now, Disability Equality, run the direct payment support. And within Lancashire, it's really good in that we have ongoing support for everybody. There's access to payroll, as you were saying, there's that support in place. There's access within the insurance providers for that. And also in Lancashire, we're running a peer support group. So again, that's how we linked in with yourselves, isn't it? The Independent Living Group community. In that I think there's a lot of good support services throughout the UK, and it's about all joining together to help each other, to support each other. And I think it's getting better from the early 2000s, where there was little or no support in place. And it's quite disheartening to see in the chat that there is a lot of people who still haven't got that ongoing support. And I think sort of linking in with people, if we can do that following these discussions and these events, I think that's all, all good. And especially with that campaign for change, sort of, they always say that one voice doesn't make a difference, but there's a lot of us even in this event now So if we can make it a UK-wide sort of campaign, then, you know, we can make change, and we can make sure that everybody's supported and that nobody is left thinking that they're on their own.
Very well said. Thank you, Rachel, and lots of support for that coming in as well. That's absolutely brilliant. I think that was very much the aim of the group, and it's so great to hear you express that. And I think, you know, I agree entirely. We've got a few minutes left, so in terms of the questions, just one thing to add, actually, for anyone who isn't aware of the history, it is worth going back. You can find the old Department of Health guidance from 2003 and 2009 for direct payments. It's also, for those who aren't necessarily aware, worth looking back at the National Centre for Independent Living, the NCIL, and the role they played in doing some of the stuff we're kind of talking about now. Things have moved on, or at a different place, but there was a concerted effort to bring organisations together who provided that kind of support, very much with the principles that would align with what we're talking about today. So do have a look. There's a guy called John Evans who did, who might be here. He was going to attend. I don't know if he could make it. Who was very instrumental back in the day, and has been quite supportive of what we're trying to do. So it's certainly something we could talk about again, and try and coordinate, network different groups together to share and create a stronger voice. So if you're not in the Facebook group for ILG Community already, please do join. Please have a look. There's no cost implication. It literally is just jump on board and get involved in the conversation, because there really are some brilliant conversations that happen on that group. And we can, you know, we're committed to try and start maybe mapping support, see where it's working, where it's not. If it's working, why is it working? What things can we share and spread the word on? And really, as Rachel said, bring us all together. So in terms of hands up, I've got a hand up. Sebastian, thank you for waiting patiently. You've got your hand up. Perhaps you've got a question, I think, for the panel.
Well, following what you were saying about care and shopping being covered within policy to do with social care budgets and direct payments, I was just wondering what the panel thought about where therapy sits in that, if you don't screen in for a PHB.
Anyone on the panel wants to take that on?
When you say therapy, you mean sort of PAs help supporting you to access therapy?
Or even assisting you to do therapy, given that the cost of therapy, and if you need it regularly, obviously you'd rather access a professional, but it can be prohibitive. And then understandably, your social care worker and your physiotherapist say it's up to the PA's discretion because they're not a professional.
I think that if you can get the right training for that PA, I know that a lot of people who have district nurses support for different things, say for catheter care, stoma care, they have training for PAs who are then going to get signed off. So I can't see, again, it all depends on, I think we all know which social worker, which local authority that you're part of that would sort of put that in a support plan. But if that's part of your health and well-being and it's an outcome, then again, that's something that should be considered.
I think what doesn't help, and I don't know whether anybody else agrees, is the disparity between what your PA is being paid an hour and what they see the professional being paid, and it doesn't help matters.
That disparity going forward is a big issue. I think there is a very, very strong argument to any social worker or professional to say, actually, if my PA is helping me with this therapy, then I'm likely to be mobile for a lot longer, and therefore it's going to save you an awful lot. of money in the long term. So, you know, talk to them in their language. You know, that they always want to see money savings. So, you know, you just have to basically push that agenda forwards, really.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sebastian, and thanks, guys. So we're a couple of minutes left. I've got one question from Jenny Steeples. Hi, Jenny.
Hi, David. I've asked it in the chat, but I'm really desperate to find somebody that can help us. We've had a family trust since 2007 because the bank account we couldn't open a bank account in our daughter's name because she lacks the capacity. So we opened a trust account, which was agreed by HSBC. It was agreed by 2 local authorities that she was under. We're now going for a personal health budget, and they're telling us we can't have a trust. They want us to open a new bank account, which is going to be a nightmare. But because we can't open an account, she can't open an account, they want a third party to take over or a commission service. And I've said over my dead body. But we're in a real stick at the moment. I'm wondering if anybody else has had this problem.
Jenny, I'm happy to come in and answer you and just explain to you what we've done with our son, because he was a minor when we started off our direct payment, and I had the bank account in my name for his support, and that is what that bank account is for. Since he's become an adult, I do have guardianship for him, and I have opened bank accounts with him, but I'm a third party on that account. So I don't know how your bank would work, but I've certainly been able to do that, have a bank account in his name, and I can operate that bank account as a third party.
I've got my granddaughter here on the floor beside me too. We'll look into that, but I can't see why we need to close a bank account that's been working well for the last 17 years without any problem. It's been monitored every year. The HSBC now monitor it because of money laundering, because of the government's new laws. There's been no problem whatsoever of it. But why? Have anybody else come across this with the health authority?
What's their reasoning, Jenny? What's the reasoning that they're giving you?
They haven't given us a reason. They've just said we can't do it. And also they've said that one of the trustees is our manager full time, always has been. And they say he can't be a manager. They're also saying if you have a direct payment, you can't be paid for any admin costs, any time or costs. If you take a direct payment, you do it free. Well, that's never been a problem with our local authorities, both Lambeth and Hampshire County Council. So we're in a real mess at the moment, David. So if anybody can give us any help. They've gone to a solicitor. We don't know why. They don't like the trust deed that was drawn up with a group down in Bristol called Trust for Us in 2007, actually 2006, when there was very little help out there for somebody who needed 24-hour care. You know, she didn't have independent living fund because her funding was too high. So we came straight in within Control and Lambeth Council. And everybody, our broker agreed that we could open a trust, and we're just waiting to see. It's with the solicitor at the moment. And somebody thinks that they're just out of control, the local authority. Hopefully they're not here today.
Well, I mean, I don't think we're going to get to the bottom of it now, Jenny, but I'd be happy to have a conversation with you kind of offline
Please
about
do.
that and see if we can direct you, provide some sort of guidance and signposting.
Yeah, I have tried to ring you, but you must be on holiday. About
apologies.
6 weeks ago or so.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Sorry. Oh, wow. I would always try and get back
to you. I gave up.
Oh, yeah. I'm so sorry. Yeah. You know me well enough, Jenny, that I would pick up that call if I got it. I'm so sorry. But yeah,
if anybody has any advice, I would be grateful. I really would, because we're turning from a service that is absolutely brilliant. And we were actually told 18 months into the service, we had made more progress than a provider had made in 10 years. And now the health authority wants us to collapse it just because it's successful. We're having a review next week. No, the 13th, we're having a review again. So anyway, sorry to bring you personal things, but I just wondered if anybody else had a similar problem on this.
No, Jenny, please don't apologise. That's really, really helpful and interesting. I'm sure it'll be resonating with people, and it's certainly their concerns when you do switch from funding body, continuing health, all of the kind of issues that swing. that kind of swirl around that and the concerns you have. So let's have a chat
It's
offline.
supposed to be integrated, David. It's
Yeah.
supposed to be integrated.
Yeah, and I know how hard you fought over the years. So let's have a chat, Jenny, and then if there is shared learning, if you're happy, perhaps that's something we can feed back to this group.
Please,
and
yes,
others.
absolutely.
That'd be brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyway,
So,
thanks for today.
Thank you, Jenny. Thanks for coming. Jade, I brought you back in. I think there's been some questions on the chat.
Yeah, I've just picked a few out, so I'm sorry if we didn't get to you, and if we could try and have a quick speed round of answers because we haven't got loads of time left. So the first one is from Philip. I've always been told I can only spend my personal budget on activities, services and equipment specified in my care plan. I don't have one, and the NHS refuses to provide me with one. So councils are challenging any expenditure. Is there any advice on this one, please, from the panel?
Sorry, just dropped my phone.
Can you answer from the floor, Brett, with your usual knowledge?
I'll try to. I hope everybody can hear me because I can't get to my phone at the moment.
We can hear you.
But basically, anybody who receives any service from local authorities or NHS, they must have a care plan in place in order for that service to be commissioned. So whoever is funding the individual needs to ask for that. They have a legal right to it. And if they don't, then go through the formal complaint process.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, next one, Craig. I'm having trouble accessing my direct payments account. I opted for a managed account and I receive a direct payment, but no PAs were available. So I accrued thousands in unused care. I am being refused access to this money. Is this legal?
Again, I've answered Craig on that one, and I'm happy to speak to him after the meeting because he's from Wales and he's got some issues that he'd like to discuss with me. Happy
Fantastic.
to do that.
Thank you. From Peter and Fran, I've shortened this one. Should councils have a list of qualified PAs?
That's a difficult one because actually the local authorities don't want to be in a position where they are seen to be an employer if a case ever went to tribunal. So whilst I understand the policy and rhetoric behind it, actually it's not such a good idea.
There are lots of discussions going on around kind of having lists of PAs. There's obviously the issue of self-employed PAs that we definitely haven't got time to go into today, but it's something that we could talk about in future. What does anyone else think? Or has anyone had any experience? Perhaps I know in Scotland, Agnes, there's some work going on. There's probably more of a national effort to support PAs, isn't there? And there's an ID badge scheme. Could you quickly talk of that briefly? Agnes, the ID badge scheme.
I'm just looking to unmute myself there.
Okay.
Yeah, what there is in Scotland, we have an organisation in Scotland which is a personal assistant network in Scotland, and they have recently, well, they did a lot of work round about COVID for producing ID for letters for personal assistants. They also have separate Facebook groups for different areas which PAs can join, and they would maybe put adverts up for any job vacancies and things like that. I can put the wee link in the chat for the ID badges, happy to do that. And there's also a lot of work going round about in the Scottish Government just now with the PA programme board, looking at things like recruitment and retention of personal assistants. We manage on Indeed. We sometimes get jobs going out on the My Job Scotland. We try to have maybe, if it was local, the universities or the colleges, if there's young, some of the best PAs I've had have been students, and they're maybe doing their social work degree or they're doing health and social care. So we try and angle at these things as well, just to see what's suitable for people.
Brilliant, thank you, Agnes. And any other comments from Susan or Rachel on that question? Briefly, if we can. Sorry, I know, Jade, we're behind.
Well, I know when you talk about a list of PAs, there's things like PA register. I know that's one that's run through Disability Positive and another organisation, and there's PA pool, things like that. So about qualification, I don't think there is anything that will qualify somebody other than, depending on what somebody wants the PA to be able to do, would be then to get them trained. I know that Skills for Care can offer certificates, care certificates, but again, what works for one person isn't necessarily what another individual employer wants, you know, not a qualified carer, but it could be something completely different. So I think that's the issue with, I know back in the day, I tried to set up a PA register, but you get information about certain people, put them on the register, but within a week or two, their details aren't relevant anymore. So it's a big task. So I think you better sort of go in at maybe looking at ones that are already sort of established. And again, recruitment again, where I'm from, the support organisation in Lancashire has a recruitment service. So, and we use the Find a Job website, the government run one. And I know that there's discussions with Indeed about enabling individual employers to access that to do recruitment as well.
Thanks, Rachel. I think just, yeah, and I think it's a really tricky area, isn't it? A list of PAs for lots of reasons. And again, that's something perhaps we could talk about in a wider conversation at another event, because I think, yeah, there's just so much we could be said about it. I'm biting my tongue as we speak. Jade, are there any other questions?
One more question. Can someone answer this in 30 seconds or less from Heidi? How do you get more support if your hours aren't covering what you need? Rachel?
Got to approach your local authority. If that's the case and it's written in the guidance, then you ask for a review and you discuss what needs aren't being met by your current budget. So that would be the first protocol. And I think it's all about keeping a record of what you want to do that's not being covered in that budget as it stands.
Really good answer.
Oh, thank you so much to everyone on the panel. That was such an interesting discussion. I know we didn't get to everyone. There's just so many questions, but I think we really covered a lot there, and that was so interesting. And also to compare the way it works in different countries is so interesting as well. Okay, so we're now going to pass on to Barbara, who's here to talk about her new website launching, which sounds really interesting. So it'd be great to hear more about that. Thank you, Barbara.
Oh, you're on mute.
You're muted.
Barbara.
There we go. Hi, everybody. I'm going to be really quick because a lot of the things that I'm covering with PA Place, you've asked questions about. So I just want to very quickly say that I am a carer. I'm carer to my adult daughter, been so for 11 years. So she sustained a nasty brain complication, an injury, and she had a baby at the time. Baby's now 12, which has been quite a journey. I come from a health background and a corporate background, and about 4 years ago I kind of felt that I needed to do something about the whole state of personal assistance, and we led in this area on self-employed personal assistance, because we just couldn't get people to match my daughter's needs. There was a daughter and obviously a baby, and a daughter that is not stable. Her health is unstable all the time, and this became a problem. So we've been kind of in talks, David will know, going back probably about 2 years with certainly with me, with Essex County Council, because nobody was really talking about self-employed PAs back in the day. This is sort of a relative thing. But Agnes, I'm really, really interested. Sounds like Scotland's leading on this in a big way. We in the South have real problems with recruitment and retention of PAs because £12 an hour just doesn't cut it. They need a lot more money. But I'm just, what I'll do is I've got a couple of 4 slides to show. I just want to show you what we're doing. The intention is that we get PAs from exactly what you've said, universities, ex-cleaners, or people that are cleaners, or party planners, or all sorts of things. We're kind of looking at a model to complement the PA model that everybody knows and thinks about, So if you keep your fingers crossed, and I'll see if I can get my my presentation out. I think I was supposed to share my screen first, wasn't I? Is that right, guys? Hang on. I can't see it. It's gone. I'll have to go back.
Big green button in the middle.
No, it's not there. The PowerPoint's gone up. So I'll share screen. Somebody's disabled my...
should be enabled.
We'll see.
You've definitely got permission.
Here we go. Here we go. So now...
No, I can't hear you now, Barbara.
Barbara, you're muted. I don't know what's happened. It just flicked on.
No, I didn't do that. Right. This is a problem then. It's got host disabled participant screen sharing on my screen. Hence, I won't be able to share.
Okay, it's on the website. And then, David, are you able to put it up as in the background whilst Barbara talks at all?
Try once more.
It does say here you've got permission, Barbara, but I've got it here. I'll open them for you, okay? We'll get
Got the right one, hasn't he, with the 4 slides?
Oh, I do hope so.
It's okay. So. Do you know something? We're all friends here, aren't we? All we're trying to do is to help each other out with a system that nobody else in this country would accept. The trouble is we can't, as carers, go on strike like other members of our society. So we're all muddling along here. And do you know, when I first started this, I kept bringing up the question of we're a voice. And that's hopefully what we are. We really need to shout and holler about our situation and what's going on. So just to show you, we haven't got slide 4 on there. Never mind, go on, we'll forget about that. Go on to the first one. Go up to the top one. Just click on number 1.
Yeah, sorry, it's a PDF version, Barbara. So this is as best. Is it really small? Is it coming up very small?
Something. Don't worry, because what I'll do is I'll send.
They are on our site. We have got them available on our site on the web.
Fantastic. That is really superb. So it's basically welcome to Care for Carers Community. This is the umbrella company for our business. We're a KIP company. We're a community interest company, and going back about 2 years, Essex County Council helped me to set up basically an online support group for PAs. And then what happened was the pandemic, so it's all been a bit quiet. So PA Place is where PAs are supported. So we'll provide a peer support and platform for directly employed by their client PAs and home carers. Directly employed PAs have all kinds of names for themselves, but basically we'll use PA for this. So it's an online platform providing support, I hate training, coaching, up-to-date news, webinars, Zoom sessions, sharing best practice, bite-sized guest interviews, and a YouTube channel. Now we're doing a very soft launch at the moment, so not everything is available, but we're as the weeks and months go on, we'll have more things available. This is a payment club. This is a subscription. Members pay a monthly £4 a month or an annual subscription of £48. Now, with Essex, what happens with this payment is that it's actually the direct payment receiver that has this written into their personal plan. The PA won't have to pay anything. This will be paid by the PA. And for many people employing PAs, I think that makes giving them that kind of membership, although it's not you know, it's not costing a fortune, I think shows an element of care. So next slide, please. This is a very quick circle of how everybody interacts with each other. I don't think we can separate carers, PAs, people that are employed by care companies. Basically, you know, the unpaid carer is as much part of this wheel of care. So basically a directly employed care worker, our recruitment, the best is always word of mouth, community advertisements, and our local authority does have a site. They don't recruit them, but they have an introductory service, because remember, as soon as you become an agency, then you come under the CQC. So the salary comes from the local authority, sometimes obviously a privately paid paying client. They can be self-pay or part pay. So the I'm talking a lot of P's, PA support, once again, back to training, Facebook, Zoom sessions, YouTube channel, professional development, and we can talk about that in a minute. And we're in talks with Benetton Healthcare at the moment. I don't know whether anybody uses Benetton Healthcare. They have a very reduced healthcare package to enable people to have choices about their healthcare, especially in these days that we don't know when we're going to get the healthcare that we need. So everyone's involved in this: family carers, friends, care for carers coaching, which is something that we do, online PA coaching. We'll be working with Skills for Care, and there we go. That's a circle that everybody is going to buy in to a really good support service for the client. I don't like that word either. So next one, please, David. So this is, I'm working with Essex, but obviously we're hoping to spread out, but we'll get Essex hopefully up and running, you know, nice and smoothly, and we're not going to exclude anybody else from around the country. Anybody around the country can join PA Place right away, basically. So we're going to signpost and encourage PAs and individuals to PA Place. PA Place will encourage members to mentor new members, and with encouragement could form hubs. Don't think we can spend time on hubs today. Maybe maybe this is something that we can look at in the future, because I'm sure other people are probably beginning to hear about this or even have a lot of knowledge about it. So PA Place will be a safe, supportive, educational and particularly fun club. We're going to be doing lots of fun things. It's not going to be a sort of doom and gloom, or I've forgotten, I used to call it a bitch natty. You know, we're not having people spending all their time you know, complaining and so on. This is basically, I've got you, hang on Jade, I've got to get rid of you, covered my last slide. So PA Place will be safe, supportive. We've said educational, fun club. I've just said that, haven't I? And we're going to encourage the very best practice and retention of this highly important group of professional carers. And that is the most important thing, is we want to professionalize this job. People here are having the most amazing skills and care. They go beyond beyond, especially the directly employed PAs, because they have been matched. I would, David, would you be able to get my website up if I gave you the link? Is that possible?
Yeah, I don't know how much time we've got left. That's the only thing. Bear with me. Let me see.
It's actually 2 minutes.
Okay.
Where are we?
Is it
Oh, we're right.
Care,
I literally
Care for Carers Club?
Club. That's right. Care for Carers Club.
Right.
The reason I'm showing you is because this is where the recruitment starts. This is where people can join up, and it all sort of leans from this.
Bear with me.
That's okay. While David's doing that, has anybody got any questions?
There's a few things coming up, Barbara, a few things coming up in the chat round about the hourly rate, which I think is quite interesting, and it's ranging quite a bit across the country.
Okay, well, our hourly rate here in Essex is £12 an hour, and everybody in Essex, we're fighting this, and there is an agreement that this needs to be £15 an hour, because if they have to recruit a PA from a care company, the care company in Essex gets around £22 an hour for a PA, and that PA is then paid between £10 and £12 an hour. The directly employed, if they were paid £15, it would still be less than the £22 that the agencies get per PA. So this is the argument that we're making, and it is being talked a lot in the local authority and also in the Integrated Care Board, because the kind of people that you want is the kind of people, you know, that feel professional, that are being, you know, what's the old adage, you know, pay peanuts and all that, you know, it's not a good thing. So I'm going to go through this very, very quickly. Can you go down to the video? This is what I want to show you. Okay, just click on the video, David. You should be out, it should come up. Hope everyone's got volume. I don't think you've got volume, have you, David, on that?
Yeah, I can hear it, but I'm not sure it's going to be coming through. Yeah, sorry. I'd probably have to do a setting. I needed a bit of prep time, probably. Apologies.
Well, I did ask for it, but never mind.
Okay, I'll drop the I'll drop the link into the chat.
Take it down now. That'll be all right, and I'll just finish off there. So again, sorry, Agnes. Going back to you. Have you got any points to add? Because obviously there's a lot going on in your area.
Yeah, well, in our area, the social care rate was recommended social care rate is £10.50, which I don't feel is enough either, because, you know, even in my personal situation, the specialist qualities that I would look for in a personal assistant warrants a lot more than that as an hourly rate.
And how does everyone else feel about that? Just putting the, because the more people we get behind increasing this hourly rate, I think the better it's going to be for people.
Yeah.
From a Lancashire point of view, people are assessed as having a budget, and so they work with that budget. So the local authority can suggest an hourly rate, and they would always look at saying anything from £9.50 an hour. Obviously, we're saying now that it's going to be up to £10.42 in April, but they can't actually tell you what rate to pay. They will, however, question anything that's higher than, say, £12.50. If they go up to £13, £14, £15 an hour, they might say it's too high. But if the budget is being used and what they're getting out of that budget is met, then they're following the rules of the direct payments, because the budget is meeting their needs. So yeah, there's no set hourly rate. The only people who should set hourly rates are self-employed PAs.
I think there's room for a lot more movement here, guys, don't you? I think that this is something that be great to have some discussions on the Facebook site. And
yeah, that'd be great. Are we able to just finish up now, just because we've got 2 minutes left of the whole meeting? Sorry. Yes. But it would be fantastic to carry this discussion on over on the website, on Facebook, sorry.
Thank you very much, everybody. Lovely to meet you.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Barbara.
much, Barbara.
That's all right.
Thanks, Barbara. Just to say, sorry, we got your slides quite late in the day, I think, with the instructions. So sorry we missed that out. I think we got them, the last slide, the fourth slide, just today. So it didn't make its way over.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so interesting. That would be absolutely great if that could be rolled out across the country and everyone could get involved. Right, so we've just got a couple more minutes left, and we really wanted to just have some general questions, any discussions. So if anyone would like to ask, not about Barbara, but just generally now about ILG Community, anything you'd like to discuss about the meeting, do come in now if you'd like to, put your hand up. Jennifer, would you like to come in?
We're having a struggle here in Hampshire with a blue light card for PAs. Skills for Care say they are working on it, but they say they've been working on it for a very long time.
Yeah, it's not just your area. This been discussed a lot on the Facebook group. They just don't seem to be budging for PAs, and I think it's discriminatory and ridiculous being just open, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's the same for direct payments advisors, I can tell you.
Yeah. I mean, so we've so many organisations have tried to get them to budge on this, and they just seem to be sticking to this party line that it's impossible for them to verify who's a PA, which we all know is nonsense. And I really
call them PAs in care, and in fact, our PAs do get blue light cards. I don't know why. We do a pay slip and it says the CPS trust on it. Whether it's because we're a trust, I don't know. But ours get it, but then I know so many. Rachel, who's on here, another Rachel from Hampshire, some of hers get it and some don't. It just is unfair. It really is, because it's a huge advantage.
Yeah. Heidi, a blue light card is a sort of reduction scheme, a percentage off scheme. So different organisations, shops, etc., can sign up to it. It was mostly launched for the blue light people, ambulance, NHS, etc. in the beginning, widened to carers generally. And there's quite a few organisations they accept on there if you go on their website, but they've been really stubborn on this issue of PAs generally, which is such a shame. I just hope they find a way. But even in the last day, someone's posted with another response from them saying they're not moving on that position. That's very frustrating. Similarly, just on this topic, another organisation that comes up a lot is Indeed. There's such a mixed response people get with them. Like I, for example, have never had any trouble with Indeed. Other people cannot get on there, and they're very stubborn about people having to put if they do get on there, that their account being their own personal name, which not everyone wants, their name and their care needs broadcasted to everyone. We've been trying so hard to engage with Indeed, and they've just, again, really, I can't even say they've been engaging, they've just not answered. We did get some really good traction on Twitter the other day. We had 15,000 people seeing and responding to our tweet. And we did get a response from them, but I haven't heard anything since, but I'm going to keep pestering them. I'm not dropping that issue. So, right, anything else that, I know we haven't got long, I'm sorry.
What is the address of the Facebook page? I've never been on it.
I put it in the chat and I'll do it again because it's one of those that you can't just, not very easy to say. Anyone else got any questions? No, can't see any hands. Oh, well then great timing because we're now at past. So as we said, this whole meeting has been recorded and will be put on our website. So thank you so much for coming. And all the documents that we've mentioned, it will also be on the website, so you can download them. But yeah, we've got so much planned. Obviously, this is our second meeting ever, so we would love to be able to have more chance where people can chat more and that kind of thing, and have some perhaps discussions on specific topics or webinars. So we have lots, and sorry, my words went there. A really good place to find out what is happening is the Facebook page, because it's just where we can keep up to date the quickest and easiest. There's so many great discussions going on there. I'm just going to put that in the chat now, so come and join there and you can see what we're up to. So thank you so much everyone, and particularly to all the speakers. You know, we really appreciate you coming, and we'll hopefully see you at the next meeting. Thank you.